The stars themselves seemed to bow before the mighty Zephyrian Galactic Empire. For 3,000 years, their massive warships had crushed every species that dared to resist their rule. 12 star systems trembled at the mention of their name. Their technology was beyond anything most civilizations could imagine. Their military had never known defeat. Admiral Kreshitar stood on the command bridge of his flagship, looking out at the endless void of space. His scaled skin reflected the blue glow of the ship's control panels. Like all Zephyrians, he was tall and thin, with 4 arms that moved with deadly precision. His yellow eyes held the cold confidence of a predator who had never met an equal. The Kyo communication system crackled to life. A nervous voice spoke through the speakers. "Admiral, we have received troubling reports from our outer patrol ships." Kreshitar turned slowly. His aide, a younger Zephyrian named Vexcal, stood at attention. The fear in his voice was obvious, and this annoyed the Admiral greatly. "What reports?" Kreshitar asked, his voice like ice. "Sir, 3 of our patrol ships encountered vessels from a species calling themselves humans." The patrol leader demanded their surrender, as is proper when dealing with primitive races. "But sir..." Vexcal paused, clearly afraid to continue. "Speak," Kreshitar roared. "The human ships destroyed 2 of our cruisers in less than 5 minutes. The surviving ship barely escaped." Silence filled the bridge. Every Zephyrian officer stared at Vexcal as if he had spoken in an alien tongue. The idea of anyone destroying Zephyrian warships was impossible. Their shields were the strongest in the galaxy. Their weapons could melt through solid rock from 1,000 miles away. Admiral Kreshitar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Impossible. Our patrol captains grow soft and lazy. They probably ran from some mining ships and made up this story to hide their shame." But deep in the outer reaches of space, the truth was far different. Commander Jake Martinez stood in the control room of the human vessel UES Liberty. He was a man in his 40s, with gray hair and steady hands that had seen many battles. His crew worked around him with the smooth efficiency that came from months of training and preparation. "Sir, we have 3 alien ships approaching our position," reported Lieutenant Amy Stevens from the sensor station. She was young, maybe 25, with bright eyes that missed nothing. Jake nodded calmly. "Put them on screen." The main display showed 3 large ships unlike anything in human design. They were long and thin, with weapons that glowed with dangerous energy. The ships moved in perfect formation, like predators closing in on prey. A harsh voice filled the Liberty's bridge. The universal translator made the alien words understandable, but the tone was clear enough. "Primitive humans, you will surrender immediately. Your species will serve the Zephyrian Empire, resist, and face destruction." Jake looked around at his crew. Every face showed determination, not fear. These men and women had volunteered for this mission knowing they might never see Earth again. They had trained for 2 years, ever since humanity's first contact with hostile alien forces. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. The communication officer nodded. "Channel open, sir." Jake spoke clearly and calmly. "This is Commander Martinez of the United Earthship Liberty. You are in human space without permission. Leave now, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Laughter came through the speakers. The alien captain's voice dripped with contempt. "You dare threaten the mighty Zephyrian Empire? We have conquered 12 star systems. We have destroyed countless species. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our ships." Jake smiled grimly. "Lieutenant Stevens, target the lead ship. All weapons." "Targets locked, sir." "Fire." The Liberty's plasma cannons erupted with deadly light. The weapons were based on human engineering, but improved with technology taken from the first alien ship humanity had captured. The beams struck the Zephyrian cruiser's shields and burned through them like they were made of paper. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Pieces of debris scattered through space, glowing hot against the cold stars. The remaining 2 Zephyrian ships turned to flee, but Jake had expected this. "Target the second ship. Fire at will." More plasma beams lanced out from the Liberty. The second alien cruiser tried to turn away, but human weapons were faster. The ship's hull cracked open, spilling atmosphere and crew into the vacuum of space. The third Zephyrian ship escaped, jumping to faster-than-light speed. Jake knew this was intentional. He wanted survivors to carry word back to their empire. Humanity was ready for war. Back on the Zephyrian homeworld of Zeph Prime, Emperor Vexthul received the survivors' report in his massive throne room. The Emperor was ancient even by Zephyrian standards, his scales dark with age, his forearms adorned with rings of conquered worlds. "Impossible," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "No species has ever destroyed our ship so easily." The surviving ship captain knelt before the throne, his body shaking with fear and shame. "My lord, I saw it with my own eyes. Their weapons cut through our shields like they did not exist. Their ships moved with impossible speed and precision." Emperor Vexthul rose from his throne, his full height towering over everyone in the room. "You speak of cowardice disguised as enemy strength. These humans are primitives who barely achieve space travel. They cannot possibly threaten our empire." But the Emperor's words carried doubt. In 3,000 years of conquest, no enemy had ever destroyed Zephyrian ships so completely. Even the most advanced civilizations had required massive fleets to threaten a single Zephyrian cruiser. "Admiral Kreshitar," the Emperor commanded. The Admiral stepped forward and bowed. "Yes, my lord. Take 50 ships. Go to this human space and bring me their leaders in chains. Show the galaxy what happens to those who dare resist the Zephyrian Empire." Admiral Kreshitar bowed again. "It will be done, my lord. These humans will learn to fear our power." As the Admiral left to prepare his fleet, Emperor Vexthul stared out at the stars. Something felt different about this conflict, but he pushed the feeling away. The Zephyrian Empire was eternal. It had never been defeated, and it never would be. Meanwhile, in human space, emergency meetings were taking place on every colony, world, and military base. Fleet Admiral Karen Brooks sat in the command center on Earth's moon, reading reports that confirmed humanity's worst fears. The aliens were coming in force. Admiral Brooks was a woman who had earned her rank through decades of service and an iron will that never bent under pressure. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her blue eyes studied the tactical displays with the focus of a master strategist. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, her chief intelligence officer, checked her data pad. "Based on their ship speed and the distance from their home world, we estimate 6 weeks. Admiral Brooks nodded. "Then we have 6 weeks to prepare for the fight of our lives. Send word to all colonies and military installations. Operation Liberty begins now." Across human space, the greatest military mobilization in history began. Humanity was about to face an empire that had never known defeat. But they had advantages the aliens could never understand. They had the determination of a species that had conquered their own world through warfare, and they had spent 2 years preparing for this exact moment. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn why humanity had survived every challenge their harsh world had thrown at them. 6 weeks passed like lightning. Admiral Kreshitar's fleet of 50 Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. The Admiral stood on his command bridge, expecting to see a few primitive human vessels scattered around their home star. Instead, his sensors showed something that made his blood run cold. 200 human ships waited in perfect battle formation. They hung in space like a wall of metal and death, their weapons already powered and ready. Every ship was different in design, but they moved together like parts of a single machine. "This is impossible," whispered Vexcal, the Admiral's aide. His forearms shook as he read the sensor data. "How do they have so many ships?" Admiral Kreshitar stared at the display screen. In all his years of conquest, he had never faced a fleet this large. Most species could barely build 10 warships before the Zephyrian Empire crushed them. These humans had built an entire armada. Communication signal came from the human fleet. The voice was calm and clear, speaking in perfect Zephyrian language. "This is Captain Lisa Chen of the United Earth ship Thunderbolt. You have entered human space with hostile intent. Leave now, or be destroyed." The Admiral's surprise turned to anger. How dare these primitives threaten him? He had destroyed entire civilizations. His ships carried weapons that could burn planets to ash. "Human captain," Kreshitar replied, his voice full of contempt. "I am Admiral Kreshitar of the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Your species will surrender now, or face complete destruction. You cannot win against our superior technology." There was a pause. Then Captain Chen's voice returned, and now it carried a note of amusement. "Admiral, you're about to learn something new. Humans don't surrender." The communication ended. "Admiral," Kreshitar felt rage building in his chest. "All ships attack formation. Show these primitives the power of the Zephyrian Empire." The 50 alien warships moved forward in their traditional battle formation. They had used the same tactics for centuries, overwhelming enemies with superior firepower and advanced shields. Energy beams lanced out from their weapons, lighting up space with deadly colors, but the humans were ready. Captain Lisa Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderbolt, watching the alien attack begin. She was a woman in her 30s with black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her crew worked around her with the precision of a well-trained orchestra. "All ships, implement Plan Delta," she ordered into her communication device. The human fleet split apart in a move that seemed to defy military logic. Instead of meeting the Zephyrian charge head-on, the ships scattered in all directions. Some dove below the alien formation, others rose above it, and still others swung wide to the sides. Admiral Kreshitar watched in confusion. What are they doing? This is not how space battles work. But the humans knew exactly what they were doing. They had studied every piece of Zephyrian technology they could capture. They had analyzed alien tactics and found their weaknesses. Most importantly, they had developed new ways of fighting that no galactic empire had ever seen. Commander Ryan Scott led a squadron of 20 fast attack ships in a maneuver that would have been impossible for any other species. His ships used the gravity of nearby asteroids to slingshot around the Zephyrian formation, gaining incredible speed while staying hidden behind space debris. "Target their engine sections," Scott ordered his pilots. "Hit them fast and get out." The human attack ships struck like lightning. Their weapons were different from anything the Zephyrians had encountered. Instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles that moved at incredible speeds. The metal slugs punched through alien hulls like bullets through paper. 3 Zephyrian cruisers exploded before they even knew they were under attack. Their debris scattered through space, creating a deadly cloud of twisted metal and burning gas. On the other side of the battle, Captain Emma Davis commanded the UES Vengeance, a massive human dreadnought that carried experimental weapons. Davis was a tall woman with red hair and the calm demeanor of someone who had spent years preparing for this moment. "Fire the antimatter torpedoes," she ordered. The Vengeance launched 6 torpedoes that looked like nothing the Zephyrians had ever seen. They were sleek and fast, and they carried warheads that contained the most destructive force humans had ever created. The torpedoes struck a group of alien ships. When they exploded, they released pure energy that tore through Zephyrian shields, like they were made of tissue paper. 4 more enemy vessels vanished in balls of white-hot fire. Admiral Kreshitar watched his fleet being destroyed and could not understand how it was happening. His ships were supposed to be invincible. Their shields were the best in the galaxy. Their weapons had crushed countless enemies. "How are they doing this?" he roared at his crew. His chief engineer, a nervous Zephyrian named Koltar, studied the tactical displays with growing fear. "Sir, their weapons are completely different from anything we have encountered. They are not using energy-based attacks like every other species. They are using solid projectiles moving at impossible speeds, and some kind of matter-destroying explosives. Impossible. No primitive species could develop such weapons." But Koltar had more bad news. "Sir, their ships are moving in ways that should not be possible. They are using gravity fields and stellar objects as weapons themselves. Look." On the display, a group of human ships was doing something that broke every rule of space combat. They had positioned themselves near a large asteroid and were using its gravitational field to accelerate their projectiles to even higher speeds. The enhanced weapons struck a Zephyrian battleship and tore it completely apart. Commander Jake Martinez, the same human who had destroyed the first Zephyrian patrol, was leading another squadron in a different kind of attack. His ships moved in perfect coordination, each one covering the others while they struck at different targets. "Remember your training," Martinez told his pilots. "These aliens have never faced an enemy that thinks like us. Use that advantage." The human pilots followed tactics that seemed insane to the Zephyrians. They flew directly into enemy fire, then used the explosions around them as cover to get closer to their targets. They worked together like a pack of wolves, each ship playing a specific role in bringing down much larger prey. By the third hour of battle, Admiral Kreshitar's fleet was falling apart. 37 of his 50 ships were either destroyed or too damaged to fight. The remaining vessels were scattered across the battlefield, trying desperately to retreat. The admiral himself stood on a bridge filled with smoke and the screams of his wounded crew. His flagship had taken multiple hits from human weapons, and half of his systems were offline. "Sir," Vexcal called out, his voice filled with panic. "We must retreat. If we stay, they will destroy us all." Admiral Kreshtar looked at the tactical display one last time. The human fleet was still almost completely intact. They had lost only 6 ships while destroying most of his force. It was the most complete defeat in Zephyrian military history. "Send an emergency message to the Emperor," he ordered, his voice barely a whisper. "Tell him that these humans are not primitives. They are something else entirely. Something dangerous." As the surviving Zephyrian ships fled toward hyperspace, Captain Chen opened a communication channel to all human vessels. "All ships, this is Thunderbolt. Mission accomplished. The enemy is retreating." Cheers filled the communication channels as human crews celebrated their victory. But Captain Chen did not join in the celebration. She knew this was only the beginning. The Zephyrian Empire would not accept this defeat quietly. "Prepare damage reports and casualty lists," she ordered her crew, "and send word to Earth Command. Tell them we won the first battle, but the real war is just starting." As the human fleet regrouped around their home star, rescue ships moved through the battlefield to help any surviving alien crews. This surprised the few Zephyrians who were still alive. In their empire, defeated enemies were left to die in space, but humans fought differently. They showed mercy to their defeated enemies, even as they prepared to face the full might of an empire that had never known such complete defeat. The news of Admiral Kreshtar's defeat reached Emperor Vexthul 3 days later. The ancient ruler sat on his massive throne, listening to the report with growing disbelief. His forearms gripped the armrests so tightly that the metal began to bend. 37 ships destroyed, he repeated slowly. Out of 50, the messenger, a young Zephyrian officer named Telkar, nodded nervously. "Yes, my lord. Admiral Kreshitar's surviving ships barely escaped. He sends word that the humans possess weapons and tactics unlike anything we have ever encountered." Emperor Vexthul rose from his throne, his full height casting a long shadow across the throne room. His yellow eyes burned with rage that had been building for 3,000 years of easy conquest. "Impossible," he roared. "No species has ever defeated a Zephyrian fleet. These humans are primitives who have barely learned to travel between stars." But deep in his mind, the Emperor felt something he had not experienced in centuries: fear. If these humans could destroy Kreshitar's fleet so easily, what did that mean for his empire? "Summon all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Mobilize the Grand Armada. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier in the empire. I want 800 warships, ready for battle within 1 month." Telkar's eyes widened. The Grand Armada had not been assembled in over 500 years. It represented the combined military might of 12 conquered star systems. "My lord, that is our entire military force. If we commit everything to this battle, then we will crush these humans completely," the Emperor snarled. "No species will ever again dare to challenge the Zephyrian Empire." Meanwhile, in human space, General Alex Turner sat in a secure bunker deep beneath the surface of Mars. Turner was a man in his 50s, with graying hair and scars from wars fought on distant worlds. He had spent his entire life preparing for conflicts like this. The holographic display in front of him showed intercepted alien communications. His team of code breakers had been working around the clock to understand Zephyrian military language. "What do we know?" Turner asked his intelligence officer, Captain Amy Bell. Belle was a young woman with sharp features and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She had been studying alien technology since humanity's first contact with hostile forces. "Sir, our listening posts have detected massive fleet movements throughout Zephyrian space. They're pulling ships from every system they control. Based on our analysis, they're assembling a force of approximately 800 vessels." Turner nodded calmly. He had expected this response. "And our industrial capacity?" "All colony worlds are working at maximum production," Bell replied. "Our shipyards have tripled their output since the first battle. We now have 400 combat-ready vessels, with more being completed every day." Turner studied the tactical displays showing human space. Every planet, every moon, every asteroid was now part of humanity's war machine. Factories that had once built civilian goods now produced weapons and armor. Mining stations that had harvested resources for trade now fed the hungry shipyards. "What about our new technologies?" Turner asked. Captain Bell smiled. "Dr. Steve Clark's team has made remarkable progress. They've reverse-engineered the Zephyrian shield generators we captured and combined them with our own adaptive armor systems. Our ships are now 3 times more durable than before." She activated another display showing a sleek human warship. "Engineer Michelle White has developed new fusion reactors that can power our weapon systems far beyond anything the aliens possess. And Commander Paul Jackson has established a communication network that allows our entire fleet to coordinate attacks in real time." Turner nodded with satisfaction. While the Zephyrians had been building more ships, humans had been building better ships. Every lesson learned from the first battle had been incorporated into new designs. "There's something else, sir," Bell continued. "Our psychological analysis of captured Zephyrian crew members shows interesting results. They've never faced an enemy that could match their technology. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming primitive enemies with superior firepower. And now they're facing an enemy that's not primitive," Turner said with a grim smile. Across human space, the greatest military preparation in history was taking place. Admiral Greg Cooper stood on the observation deck of the orbital shipyard above Earth, watching as the latest batch of warships rolled out of the construction bays. Each vessel incorporated lessons learned from studying captured alien technology. Cooper was a veteran naval officer who had served on ships since he was 18 years old. His weathered face showed the strain of months of constant work, but his eyes burned with determination. "How many ships completed this week?" he asked his aide. 27, sir. All equipped with the new shield systems and antimatter weapons." Cooper nodded. The humans were not just building ships faster than ever before. They were building ships that were specifically designed to fight Zephyrians. Every weapon, every defense system, every tactical computer had been created with one purpose: to destroy the Galactic Empire. On the colony world of New Dallas, Captain Michelle Price oversaw the construction of automated defense platforms. These massive structures could operate without human crews, freeing up personnel for the mobile fleet. Each platform carried enough firepower to destroy multiple enemy ships. Price was an engineer who had designed some of humanity's most advanced weapons systems. She watched as robotic workers assembled the final platform in her sector. "Test the targeting systems," she ordered. The platform's weapons tracked a practice target with perfect precision. The computer-controlled guns could fire faster and more accurately than any living creature. "Sir," her assistant called out, "we have platforms operational around every human colony. If the aliens try to attack our worlds directly, they'll face concentrated firepower from multiple directions." Price smiled. The Zephyrians expected to fight primitives who would panic and make mistakes. Instead, they would face an enemy that had turned warfare into a science. In the research facilities on Europa, Dr. Ben Miller worked with a team of scientists to develop new weapons based on captured alien technology. They had discovered that Zephyrian shields had a specific weakness that could be exploited with the right frequency of energy. "Run the simulation again," Miller ordered. The computer showed a Zephyrian warship being struck by a modified human plasma beam. The alien shields flickered and collapsed, leaving the ship defenseless. "Perfect," Miller said. "Send the specifications to all fleet commanders. Our ships can now penetrate their defenses with a single, well-placed shot. As the weeks passed, human space transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. Every world became a fortress. Every citizen became part of the war effort. Children who were too young to fight worked in factories. Elderly people who were too old for combat designed better weapons. Commander Nicole Anderson stood in the command center of the space station that guarded the approach to Earth. She watched as supply ships moved between the planets, carrying weapons and equipment to the growing fleet. Anderson was a tactical specialist who had studied every space battle in human history. She knew that the coming fight would determine the fate of humanity and possibly the entire galaxy. "Status report," she ordered. "All defense grids are operational," her communications officer reported. Fleet Admiral Brooks reports that the main battle fleet is assembled and ready for combat. We have 437 warships, ready for battle, with mobile repair stations and supply vessels standing by. Anderson nodded. The humans had learned from studying Zephyrian military tactics. The aliens relied on quick, decisive battles that overwhelmed enemies before they could adapt. But humans had prepared for a long war. They had supply lines that could sustain combat operations for months. They had repair facilities that could fix damaged ships during battle. Most importantly, they had a communication system that allowed every ship to share information instantly. "Any word on the alien fleet?" Anderson asked. "Long-range sensors show a massive force approaching from Zephyrian space. Intelligence estimates 800 ships, including their largest dreadnoughts." Anderson smiled coldly. The Zephyrians thought they were bringing overwhelming force to crush a primitive enemy. They had no idea they were about to face a military machine that had been built specifically to destroy their empire. The Battle of Proxima Centauri began at dawn on a Tuesday that would be remembered throughout the galaxy forever. 800 Zephyrian warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like deadly jewels against the black of space. At their center flew the massive dreadnought Imperial Destiny, carrying Emperor Vexthul himself into battle. The Emperor stood on his command bridge, looking out at what he expected to be his final victory. His forearms were spread wide as he gazed at the human fleet waiting for him. 400 human ships hung in space like a wall of defiance, but Vexthul felt only contempt for them. "Today we end this rebellion," he announced to his fleet commanders. "Today the galaxy learns that none can stand against our empire." Across the battlefield, Fleet Admiral Karen Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Enterprise. She was a woman who had earned her position through decades of service and a mind that could see patterns others missed. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly and her blue eyes studied the enemy formation with cold calculation. "All ships, this is Admiral Brooks," she spoke into her communication device. "Remember your training, fight as one, and we will send these invaders back to whatever hole they crawled out of." The Zephyrian Grand Armada moved forward in their traditional attack formation. They had used the same tactics for centuries, overwhelming enemies with massive firepower and superior numbers. Energy beams erupted from their weapons, turning space into a deadly light show. But the humans were ready with tactics the aliens had never seen. Captain Tony Rodriguez commanded a squadron of fast attack ships on the left flank of the human formation. Rodriguez was a pilot who had grown up flying in asteroid fields, and he understood space combat in ways the aliens could not imagine. "All ships, execute maneuver Alpha 7, he ordered. His squadron split apart and dove toward the nearest asteroid field. The Zephyrians followed, thinking they had scattered a group of cowards. Instead, they flew into a trap that Rodriguez had spent months planning. The human ships used the asteroids as cover and weapons at the same time. They fired their engines to push massive rocks toward the alien vessels, then used the chaos to attack from unexpected directions. 3 Zephyrian cruisers exploded before they realized what was happening. On the right side of the battle, Commander Janet Price led her destroyer squadron through a maneuver that seemed to break the laws of physics. Her ships moved through the enemy formation like ghosts, appearing and disappearing behind the smoke and debris of battle. Price was an engineer who understood how to use every system on her ship to maximum advantage. Her vessels carried new weapons that fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds, punching through alien hulls like bullets through cardboard. Target their engine sections, she ordered her captains. Cripple them, don't just destroy them. I want the galaxy to see Zephyrian ships floating helpless in space. Her squadron struck with surgical precision. Alien vessels that had terrorized. Entire star systems found themselves drifting powerless, their crews trapped inside dying ships. In the center of the battle, Admiral Brooks coordinated the human fleet like a conductor leading an orchestra. Every ship knew its role. Every captain understood the larger strategy. The humans fought as a single organism, each vessel supporting the others in perfect harmony. Bring us about to face their flagship, Brooks ordered her helmsman. The UES Enterprise turned toward the massive Imperial Destiny. The alien dreadnought was 3 times larger than any human ship, but Brooks had studied its design through months of intelligence gathering. She knew its weaknesses. Emperor Vexithul watched as the human flagship approached his vessel. He could not understand how these primitives were holding their own against his grand armada. Half of his fleet was already destroyed or crippled, while the human losses were minimal. How is this possible? He roared at his fleet commander. They are outnumbered 2 to 1. Admiral Kreshitar, who had survived the first battle, stood beside his emperor with shame burning in his chest. My lord, they do not fight like any species. We have encountered. They use tactics that seem impossible, weapons that should not exist. Impossible, Vexthul screamed. We are the masters of the galaxy. No primitive species can defeat us. But even as he spoke, another section of his fleet vanished in balls of fire. Captain Ben Miller had led his heavy cruisers in a devastating attack that used the aliens' own formation against them. The Zephyrians flew so close together that when one ship exploded, it damaged several others nearby. The battle raged for 6 hours, space filled with the wreckage of destroyed vessels and the bright flashes of weapons fire. The Zephyrian Grand Armada, which had never known defeat, slowly crumbled under the relentless human assault. Emperor Vexthul realized his empire was dying around him. More than half of his ships were gone, and the humans showed no sign of weakening. Their attacks became more coordinated as the battle continued, as if they were learning and adapting with every passing minute. All ships retreat, he finally ordered, his voice breaking with the weight of defeat. But Admiral Brooks had anticipated this moment. All units execute Operation Hammerfall. The human fleet had positioned ships at every possible escape route. As the surviving Zephyrian vessels tried to flee, they found themselves trapped in a carefully planned ambush. More alien ships exploded. As they ran into human forces they had not even known were there, the Imperial Destiny, massive and proud, tried to break through the human lines. But Captain Amy Stevens had been waiting for this moment. Her ship, the UES Thunder, carried the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. Fire the Nova torpedoes, Stevens ordered. 6 massive projectiles streaked through space toward the Zephyrian flagship. Each torpedo carried enough explosive power to destroy a small moon. They struck the Imperial Destiny's shields and burned through them like acid through paper. The explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. The mighty dreadnought that had carried the Emperor of the galaxy's most powerful empire vanished in a ball of nuclear fire. Emperor Vexthul, who had ruled 12 star systems for decades, died without ever understanding how his invincible empire had been defeated by a species he considered primitive. The remaining Zephyrian ships scattered in all directions, their formation completely broken. Many surrendered rather than face the terrifying efficiency of human weapons. Others tried to flee to distant star systems, carrying news of their empire's destruction. Admiral Brooks stood on her bridge, watching, as the last enemy vessels either surrendered or fled into hyperspace. Around her, her crew worked to coordinate rescue operations for both human and alien survivors. Status report, she ordered. 31 human ships lost or heavily damaged, her communications officer reported. Zephyrian losses are estimated at over 700 vessels, including their flagship and Emperor. Brooks nodded. The price had been high, but humanity had achieved something no species in galactic history had ever accomplished. They had completely destroyed the military might of the Zephyrian Empire in a single battle. News of the victory spread through human space within hours. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. On the colony worlds, families who had sent their Children to fight wept with relief and pride. But the real impact was felt throughout the 12 star systems that had suffered under Zephyrian rule for 3,000 years. Species that had been enslaved for generations suddenly found themselves free. The empire that had seemed eternal had crumbled in a single day. Captain Nicole Anderson led the first human expedition to the former imperial capital. She found a world in chaos, with different alien species fighting to claim freedom after centuries of oppression. "This is Commander Anderson of the United Earth Fleet," she broadcast to the planet. "The Zephyrian Empire is finished. Any species that desires freedom and peace will have humanity's protection and support." The response was immediate. Dozens of alien civilizations that had been crushed under imperial rule reached out to the humans, asking for help in building new governments and defending their worlds. Within months, human ships patrolled space that had once belonged to the most powerful empire in the galaxy. But instead of conquest, humanity offered something the galaxy had never seen from a dominant military force: partnership, trade, and the promise that no species would ever again suffer under the boot of galactic tyranny. Fleet Admiral Brooks stood in her office on the space station orbiting Earth, looking out at the stars that now knew a new kind of peace. The Zephyrian Empire was dead, its fleets scattered to the stellar winds, and humanity had announced its arrival on the galactic stage not as conquerors but as liberators. The age of the Galactic Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun,